Well, this was a busy week, not just here in San Francisco, but obviously a busy week for our president and his first official State of the Union. And by the way, my staff had some fun. They compared how long my State of the City was versus the State of the Union, and I think we missed each other by 1 minute. I won't go to the propriety of a mayor speaking almost as long as a president. That's self-evident. I get that. But nonetheless, we had some in-house non-financial betting going on, and suffice it to say, I once again lost. I know I can go on and on, so I'm going to try to keep this week's conversation short by saying that I appreciated the President's State of the Union, not just for its length or brevity, depending on perspective, but for its message, a focus on jobs and the economy, and the ability that the President advanced to move away from the word to action. And that advanced, of course, significantly this week on Thursday, where the President announced billions of dollars for high-speed rail systems across the country. The most significant part of that announcement, and the reason that I'm so enthusiastic that he followed up the words with now the action from that speech, is the $2.25 billion that we will be receiving in the state of California for our high-speed rail system. As you know, the voters approved about a year ago a $10 billion bond that will allow us to jumpstart this upward of $42 billion project. The terminus here in San Francisco, one in downtown LA, eventually will go down to San Diego and work from San Francisco all the way up to Sacramento. But in the interim, there was a lot of concern that California wouldn't get, quote unquote, its fair share of these federal dollars on the high-speed rail. Well, not only did we not only get our fair share, we got more than any other state. We felt that was appropriate because we're further along and we're ready to go. And I couldn't be more pleased, because this means jobs not only throughout the state, but jobs here in San Francisco. Again, that terminus at the Transbay Terminal is now really starting to take shape. This vision is becoming closer and closer to reality. The question mark remains this $400 million appropriation that we're hoping to get to build out a box that will allow that terminus and that high-speed rail to actually end at that current site, or at least at the newly developed site on the current footprint of the existing Transbay Terminal. The good news is Secretary LaHood and some of our congressional leaders made every indication, without stating factually, that we should be the beneficiary of that $400 million. It's not etched in stone yet. There's still some work to be done. But I can assure you, we had cheers up and down the halls here at City Hall, not just in my office, but upstairs in the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development that have been working so hard on this. I had a chance to talk to Senator Feinstein in a conference call on Thursday about that appropriation, and we couldn't be more pleased with the outstanding leadership, not only from her office, but Senator Boxer's office and Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. Just remember, had it not been for those three, we probably would not have received that $2+ billion, and we would not be the beneficiary, arguably disproportionately, here in the northern part of the state in the context of the Transbay Terminal. So a big, big week from jobs and infrastructure perspective, real substance and a real delivery on promises from the President and from our congressional delegation. Another big thing that I don't think got much attention, about a week ago when we were back in Washington, D.C., we announced with Speaker Pelosi a $92 million appropriation for the new year to clean up the toxics in the shipyard at Bayview Hunters Point. You know, this is something that's significant. I talk about this a lot. I talked about it in my State of the City, but I don't know if people truly appreciate this. Because of their good work and because we've organized a framework of advocacy to really look at generating federal dollars so we can clean up and remediate the shipyard site, we've received $714.2 million, close to $750 million for cleanup of that old shipyard. That's something to be proud of. That's something to celebrate. $92 million was more than we've ever received. It is a big deal to the people of the Southeast sector, a big deal to those that will get the benefit of jobs. And these, you talk about green collar jobs, these are jobs in environmental services. These are the jobs that the President talked a lot about in the State of the Union. These are the jobs to be proud of. And I can't tell you how proud I am of that receipt of dollars and that commitment. $92 million, just another very significant milestone that has been advanced and was announced just about a week or so ago. In addition to the good infrastructure news as it relates to high-speed rail and the investment in the remediation and cleanup in the shipyard, we were down at the port this week where the Queen Victoria was berthed. About 1,200 passengers got off, 1,200 passengers got onto this remarkable cruise ship. It's a sister cruise ship to the Queen Mary II that came in about 2 years ago to a lot of fanfare. Why does that matter? Jobs and economic activity. About $800,000 we estimated was spent in the city just over the course of a day associated with the transfer of passengers. The economic opportunity, of course, should not just begin and end with one cruise ship call. It should be part of a narrative of revitalizing our port. And we announced this week as well a $36.6 million revenue bond, the first since I think 1984. Don't quote me, but I think 1984 that the port has advanced. $10 million will go out to begin to revitalize Pier 27. $5.5 million is being appropriated to the existing, what we call now temporary cruise ship site, to upgrade it as we build out the new permanent site. Now, the permanent project will probably be anywhere from $60 to $80 million. The $10 million for planning and design, and that will get us a framework of exactly what the costs will. But this will be a world-class cruise ship terminal. We're not going to wait for the private sector to do it. We're going to jumpstart and do this locally. I want to thank Monique Moyer, the entire Port Commission, Rodney Fong, our new president, for a great job down there. This was a big deal to sell these bonds, and because our bond rating still is being maintained because of the fiscal discipline here at City Hall that needs to continue, we were able to sell it very quickly and at the right price, so to speak, and benefiting all of us as taxpayers. So very good news there. So from high-speed rail to revitalizing our port, focusing on remediation and green-collar jobs, boy, I'll tell you, President Obama should be proud. It's a lot of the words that came out of his mouth this week at the State of the Union, and we're making it real out here in San Francisco. But speaking of making things real, we've got to make real our promises to deal with this budget deficit. And I'm not naive to the fact that we have a lot of work to do. As I recall, or rather as I've reminded people in the last few weeks, we dealt with our mid-year problem. We did it effectively and efficiently in a timely manner. And the Board of Supervisors mostly has embraced our mid-year adjustments. We've got over a $500 million shortfall moving forward. In fact, we got some bad news last week about $20.7 million in additional retirement contribution coming from our general fund has actually increased our budget deficit back up above $500 million. We're using a number about $522 to $525 million. So the number's not necessarily gotten better, it's somehow gotten worse in the last week. We've got to address it. And one way I want to do the budget this year differently than we've done in the past is I want to incorporate some new ideas. And that is one. On February 24th, we're going to have an online town hall hosted by KCBS. The online town hall will be between 5 and 7 p.m. on Ustream. You can go to our Facebook site as well. And I encourage people to submit questions in advance and participate in this first of its kind interactive town hall. Again, a live 2-hour web stream of focus and attention exclusive on the budget. I want to hear back from people. And I'm going to talk more about that as we get closer to that February 24th date. And then on February 27th, we're going to have a live, more traditional town hall on that Saturday, and I'll talk about exactly the hour that we want to do that and the location. We're still working out the location, but February 24th, first online town hall on the budget, and then February 27th, a town hall that will be done in person. We also have created a website, and this is really exciting. I saw the beta testing on this, a website where you're going to be able to submit online to sfbudget.org, and don't do it yet because it's not up live yet, but you're able to submit your ideas on how we can address this challenging budget shortfall. And we also will have some interesting interactive things. You could be your own budget director and you can add here, subtract there. You can cut the mayor's salary in half and see if that can save you money someplace else. But then we have rules and regulations and requirements that are part of it that will make it, I think, understand how sometimes more challenging this can be than it oftentimes appears. But anyway, all that I'll talk about soon. But the big thing is in February, we're going to be out there really asking the public directly what they want us to do with this enormous budget deficit. And I'll also be going to all the commissions in February and March to directly talk about it. So there'll be a lot of public interaction and ongoing dialogue before I have to submit a balanced budget. Remember, that's not till June 1st. May 1st for enterprise departments, June 1st for all the city departments. Just briefly, two additional things. You know, San Francisco, just this last week, became the first city in the United States of America to adopt an open source software policy. First city in America, and I'm really proud of this. We're leading the way with our data SF efforts to do applications and send out machine readable information so people can mash up that information and do these applications on their iPhone, or now the new iPad, which was announced this week by Steve Jobs. I had the privilege of being there for the announcement, which was very exciting. This is a big deal. San Francisco is taking a lead in terms of transparency and open government, but open source software is really exciting. This is leading, cutting edge, more reliable from my perspective. We can get the technology moving much quicker than the typical procurement and processes, and we can deliver it in a much smaller cost or lesser cost to the taxpayer. This was a policy that, again, didn't necessarily get a lot of attention necessarily, but I think is a big deal for taxpayers in the city and for those that believe in open source and open data and more transparency of government. Final point. This week also marked two pieces of legislation I introduced. One was to restrict tobacco sales for new outlets around 1,000 feet of schools. It's, I think, self-evident, the health arguments for it, but we still have a big challenge with teenage smoking. We want to make it more challenging, more difficult. We've worked with some of the Arab grocers and some of the other business leaders to try to find a way to do this in an appropriate manner. It's for prospective new licenses, and for existing businesses that transfer ownership, then that requirement would trigger in. And the final thing was cell phone legislation, requiring specific absorption rates, which is basically what's admitted in your cell phone to be made available at point of sale when you purchase a cell phone. I can assure you this is controversial legislation. I don't want to take too much time today to talk about it, except to say we did introduce this first again in the nation requirement. The Department of Environment and their commission passed it out this week, and now we've got the legislation pending to go in front of the Board of Supervisors in the next 30 or so days. And so in probably next week or week after that, I'll talk a little bit more about that legislation. So again, good news on the infrastructure, good news on the jobs. Jobs Now has now 1,644 people hired in this program, and we're going to continue to fight for that extension of the federal program. And again, focuses on jobs, focuses on creating incentives to get businesses moving and hiring again. And you'll be hearing that from me until this unemployment rate that was at 9.4% announced this week drops back down to a historic low of, well, back down below 4%. 3% would be ideal. Zero unemployment rate, probably impossible, but let's get it back down to what it's traditionally been. Thanks very much for tuning in.